The following story is an artistic work of fiction and falsehood. Only a fool would consider it as fact. Chapter 5 The Nightmare Before Christmas, Part 2 December 20th, 2006. Hey B, since the people that seem interested in this haven't told me to stop yet, I'll give it at least one more go. Suppose today's reaction will help determine just where, or if, I'll go with it in the future. Last night wasn't too special in setup. Got to work, didn't get any flack for the incident on Monday night, got to my station and reviewed the patient updates. It seems that she had a relatively good day in terms of receptivity to treatment, working at her rehab even more vigorously than usual, arguing when she was told it was time to stop for the day. And she hadn't given the other nurses quite as hard a time as she usually did. Maybe me telling her about their wish to be nicer to her, paraphrasing. Well, who knows what caused one, really. I debated whether to go over and apologize for checking in on her without being called, but ultimately decided that I could wait for the next time she did, in fact, call me. Time passed more or less uneventfully, though I did have to deal with a couple of unruly patients. One woman in her 70s that had a stroke a few years back and is paralyzed on her left side. Usually pleasant enough, but prone to getting very frustrated at times when she can't do something despite working at it, and, I think, a general unhappiness at being relegated to this home since her husband died. Her kids visit her during the day, so I'll let you take a guess at why she was agitated and upset and couldn't sleep. The other, a woman in her 80s suffering from dementia, was convinced that she'd just fallen asleep in the meeting room a few minutes ago, and we'd taken her too soon, that her family was still out there, waiting for her. It took me a good half hour to calm her down and get her back to sleep, and to change her diaper in the meantime. I just love my job some days. It was around 4 when I got a call from her room. I hurried right over, stepping inside and finding her hunched over in a sitting position in her bed, her good arm holding her abdomen and sobbing, eyes clenched shut tightly. She opened them and looked up when I came in, looking my way, then looking down and closing them again when I quickly made my way to her bedside, kneeling there and resting my right hand on the bed beside her, close enough to reach out if she wanted to, but not reaching out myself just yet. I asked her, as gently as I could, if she'd had another bad dream, and she nodded, offering a broken up yes in between the sobs. Not feeling that much better than I had the day before, I suppose my hesitation was dwarfed by what I was feeling for her, and lifted my hand from the bed and laid it on her back, gingerly, murmuring soothing words as best as I could. I do admit that I'm not very experienced in this sort of thing, having just tried to comfort a few nieces and nephews, little brothers, rather than kids in a professional situation, but I could only do my best, rather than nothing. She remained in the position she'd been in for a moment or two longer, then shifted her body to face me more directly, and reached out to grasp at my scrubs, leaning in and crying against me, more muffledly now. After a moment's adjustment to this, I sighed quietly and moved to hug her a bit more tightly, still a loose grasp to any outside observer, but more closely than just a hand on her back. I continued murmuring as soothingly as I could, and shifted a hand up to stroke her hair lightly. It seemed to be helpful when my niece fell off her bike a couple summers ago, and, well, it didn't seem to cause a bad reaction at least. It was several minutes before she started to calm down again, finally settling into a quiet sniffling and trembling. I drew back after she'd relaxed a bit further, though she didn't let go of my scrubs, hanging on near the hemline. Maintaining contact with the hand on her shoulder, I reached out and fetched the Kleenex, then helped clean her up again, while trying to maintain a reassuring smile. I asked if she felt better, and while she hesitated slightly in answering that, she finally nodded and told me that she did a little bit. Well, a start, at least. I helped her lay down again, drawing her sheets and blankets up over her again, fluffing her pillows, finding the mini bear wedged into the corner at the wall, and setting it at her side. I asked her if her stomach was all right, and she said it hurt. When I asked, she said that it only hurt since she woke up, that it had happened when she felt bad since she was little. I asked if there was anything I could do to help, that revelation running through my mind, and she looked down, a hint of a conflicted look on her face. And after she remained silent a bit longer, I took a bit of a leap and asked if she'd like me to stay here with her for a while. She bit her lip at that a little, then nodded, hesitantly, and when I reached for where she held onto my shirt with my own right hand, gently, she let go of them and grabbed it instead. I did my best to offer her a comforting smile and said that she could go to sleep, then I'd stay, I wouldn't leave her alone. My legs were getting a bit sore at that point from kneeling on thinly carpeted floor, but I did my best to ignore them, focusing on the more important matter at the time. She finally drifted back off to sleep after another 10 minutes or so, her grip on my hand relaxing, but I stayed where I was, just shifting to sit rather than kneel, keeping my hand where it was, under her own, beside her. I also remembered to switch my pager to vibrate, and leaned back against her bedside table, which really isn't as comfortable as you might imagine it to be. But she remained asleep until 10 minutes before my shift ended, when I finally slipped away as carefully as I could. And she didn't wake up again, and while I'm not a mind reader, I think she slept as peacefully as she could have. Typing this all out ahead of time this time, after the bitching from last time. A single chunk of waiting better than scattered periodic ones. Well. And before pedo. This is like those shitty teeny bopper animes where despite endless sexual tension, the protagonist never quite makes it to her pooper. The only reason 4chan cares is because you started out with contemplating how to rip the lolly. Now it's all retarded and angsty. I beg your pardon, sir. Neither of us are teenagers. I can't tell if you're talking about a lolly or a grandma. What should I do? Toss in my pizza metaphors? Flat chest euphemisms? Toss me a bone here. Hey Nurse-kun, quick question. In the beginning, you wanted to stick it in the lolly's pooper, but now you kinda have an emotional bond with the lolly. Your attitude seemed to have changed. You don't seem to lust over her as much. Do you want to help her or just rape her? For the record, I never actually said I wanted to stick it in her pooper. Even the remarks I did make were asking B if I should stick it in her pooper, and providing risk/benefit details for analysis, through a B filter. But anyway, no, I'm not particularly inclined to stick it in her pooper at this moment in time, no. I didn't say otherwise, I said it was angsty and retarded, just like teeny bopper animus. Anyways, this story doesn't bother me morally. Better to be under the wing of a caring pet than an uncaring orphanage as far as I can see. But at this rate, how long are we going to have to wait for the pooper? At this point, it's become a TLDR. Well, angst has become a dirty word these days, tainted by the retarded antics of emo kids and goth fans for longer than most of these current emo kids and goth fans have been alive. In that vein, cut for attention lols, I don't know how that her situation would qualify as angsty in the current use of the word. I'd term it drowning in a pool of shit myself, and hey, if you feel so strongly about it, why not write it up as an adaptation of Waiting for Godot? Waiting for crippled orphan lollipooper. I demand royalties, however. Anana nurse, please forgive us concerning how this thread started as hostile right away. It's just standard 4chan greeting, for once in a while. Hey, I have no problem with being nicked, particularly as I am a shining example of Caucasianhood. Shit, I'm not some guy if that's something. I have some callus built up, obviously. Blog, 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 blog. You need to make a blog. Period. Unnecessary variables make for unnecessary hassles, you know. Anonymous, will you see her on Christmas? Because I am positive that you seeing her on that date would do loads to better her condition. I'll probably be working on Christmas, yeah. Likely double shifting due to my marital/family status. In my opinion, Nurse is not an actual pedo. I say that he's as much a average B-tard. That is, he may like lolly, but also like other porn. He may think of it as wrong and right at the same time, and think it depends on the situation. He may wonder about it, but isn't dumb shit enough to fuck with that in the real world. Actually, I don't even have any lolly porn. Was never particularly interested. Though, yes, as someone in B, I can hardly be said to have a small amount of familiarity with it, but the rest is varyingly degrees of more or less correct.
I think you should have kissed her forehead as well. Would have been sweet and reassuring. Or at least do it when she's asleep. Wahahaha!
Kissing is in a whole different realm of acceptability from a hug. I've seen plenty of nurses hugging patients. Hell, I've hugged patients. Particularly people so old and decrepit, they've more or less looped back around to the mentality and emotional needs of children. The shrink said hugging could be okay if I was reasonable and sensible about it. Since this isn't France, kissing isn't even to be considered. Yeah, picture related. I was wondering, I'm not sure how good her reading comprehension is, but Nurse-kun said that she has a mighty fine education. Would she be ready to start a solid book? Because then I'd suggest Harry Potter. She might identify herself to a protagonist who lost both his parents, was placed in a house of hell, and then got out finally. Well, she certainly seems very intelligent to me, and was, from the gossip, in a school for the gifted of some sort. I wouldn't put it past her to have already read them all. But yeah, books are in consideration. I'm trying to figure out what she might like. I'm thinking about asking her more or less directly tonight, about what sort of things she might like. Harry Potter might seem a bad idea because it focuses on conflict and has a lot of descriptions of dark areas that could just fuck her mind up even more. Maybe a more lighthearted book would be better. If I were to recommend any book, it would be this. Dear Pup, Letters to a Young Dog by Diana Pullen Thompson. Thank you. I'll look into that. As a broadcast to anyone reading, any other suggestions for literature would be appreciated. It doesn't have to be strictly limited to her age group, as she's more than smart enough to read things that are aimed higher, but bear in mind that she's rather fragile, so keep that in mind for content. What about kissing in France? French kiss for saying hello, only men and women, or perhaps men and family, but not on the lips. French kiss is only for lovers, even in France. For that, go Russia. Any kissing, I meant, which is why I used France as an example, where non-lip kissing is casual. Cheek, forehead, wherever. It's a no-go. Nurses have even gotten in trouble for kissing a boo-boo to make it better, even a bandage-covered one, and not for health or sanitation reasons. I'd make a think of the children remark, but that'd likely lure some pedo into going into a massive screed on how children need orgasms or some shit, so yeah. Honest, I can't say I get you. It's starting to really boggle my brain. Maybe it's not just you. You lust over the lolly, but you're smart and are just a nice guy. That's cool. But why the heck are B-tards eating this up, myself included? I don't know. I had never experienced anything like this in B before either. I mean, it's B. But as a B-tard that regards, with extreme disdain, the vast majority of other internet communities as vile pits of retarded excrement. Where else was I going to post it? Just to expand, The Secret Garden is about a little girl who lost her family and who is always mean and frustrated at the start. She's sent to a distant relative's house to live with. She slowly gets better socially after a grumpy old gardener remarks to her, "I think we're alike. We both don't like people, and we both don't realize it." Later on, she discovers that there is a sick boy who is also living in the relative's house but stays shut in his room all the time. Everyone tells him that he's sick and crippled, bad back. She brings him outside, introduces him to a farm boy. They work together in a secret garden, and in the end he yells, "See, I'm alright, I'm not sick, in your face!" Which makes the old gardener cry. It's an incredibly positive book. I know, it turns out nicely. Fuck, the Christmas stage in Elite Beat Agents turned out nicely too, assuming you don't fuck it up. I still likely wouldn't try and get her to play it, which, yes, I've considered, playing DS with her. Not a matter of the content itself, but the person experiencing it. I was going to draw a pic of her and I was just wondering, in which side of the room is her bed? You said it was by the wall. Does that make her lie on the left or the right side when turning out from the wall? If one were to face the room from outside the hallway, and the far wall from the door/hallway wall were posited as north, the door would be in the southeast corner. Her bed is at the northwest corner, lengthwise against the west wall, topwise against the north wall. Her bedside table is up along the top. At the north wall, there's a window above it. A dresser and the lone chair are in the northeast corner. The door leading to her bathroom is south of her bed, near the southwest corner. Her wheelchair is generally between her bedside table and the dresser. The window has bars on it, unfortunately, designed to keep senile patients from trying to climb or break out of them.
To OP, this may sound gay, but thanks. I'm still in high school and thinking about what I should do for the rest of my life. Though this story, real or not, has been quite strange, it has really helped me decide that I would like to be some way involved in medicine, be it nurse, doctor, or whatever. I wish you good luck in helping stabilize this girl's life.
Good for you. I was in a similar position, picking between doctor, paramedic, or nurse, and I'll admit that nurse was the last of 3 choices. But here I am, and I'd say it's been a rewarding choice, and I'm glad I made it. Though I have little but admiration for paramedics and doctors as well, though the latter can be pricks at times, but hey.
Hey, Nurse-kun, is it possible for the lolly to be albino or something?
Well, I guess it was possible, back when she was still a hypothetical combination of her parents' genes, but she isn't, so...
Thought you said you were going home to visit family for the weekend.
No, I said I was probably going to spend at least part of the day with them, which I'll try to, for the morning at least. I'll likely be working the day and night shift still, though. It's not a very long trip to the family home, so it isn't that big a deal to go both ways in one day/morning.
Link to an Amazon list of enchanting books for girls aged 7 to 14. Might find that a decent starting place if you're interested in getting her a book for Christmas.
Thank you. This is quite helpful.
Are you doing anything special for Christmas for her?
I'm still not sure. I'm considering the possibilities. If I do work Christmas Day, I'll have to deal with all the patients, not just her. So dedicated and singular attention/events for her are unlikely to happen. I'll have to speak with the rest of the staff about all this over the next few days.
Nurse-kun, keep up the good work. My mother was a CNA and several of my friends have nurses for mothers. I've seen the horrid conditions people can end up in while staying in the nursing home. Thank whatever gods you worship that you can do something for this little girl.
Well, I can only try. I mean, even as terrible as they can be, and I am aware of those boundaries. At least the vast majority of people living in nursing homes are at the end of their lives, their hopes and dreams and triumphs behind them. Whereas it's just the opposite for her, which makes the degrading and hopeless aspects of even the best nursing homes, well...
Guess you.
Already answered, but just to address anyone considering drawing her, you're the artists. Draw her however you like. I've provided the description. If you feel like straying from it, however, well, whatever floats your boat.
Well, you might decide not to keep going daily, but please keep us informed one way or another.
I'll try to, though it's starting to seem like daily updates aren't wanted. I'm not here to make B unhappy, after all.